The divisional round doesn't care about talent. It exposes decision-making, discipline, and poise. And this weekend, every quarterback told us exactly who they are. We get into it next on Beyond the Locker Room. All right, another weekend is done of NFL playoff action. What a weekend it was. We're going to get in and break down each one of the 4 games that happened this weekend. We're going to go starting with, of course, I think the most fascinating game perhaps of the weekend. Bills, Broncos, and the ramifications of it. Okay, pressure cracks is how I'm thinking about it right now. Right now we saw some great plays by both teams, great plays by both quarterbacks, but some significant actions that came out from each side that are going to have some impact from the playoffs and moving forward, and some things that have already happened. Josh Allen made big time throws, no two ways about it, but man, the mistakes were rough. The Denver defense was putting pressure on him, but it seemed like he just regressed before our eyes, and we saw the actual old Josh Allen that we haven't seen in years. That was Josh Allen against the Houston Texans in the playoffs. Josh Allen just throwing the ball all over the place and being careless with it. 2 picks. We'll get that last pick obviously if we get further on, but 2 picks, 2 fumbles. Honestly, I feel this game turned with 22 seconds essentially, or less than a minute left to go in the half, and then the following minute of the second half essentially. Denver scores. Denver scores to get it. I think at the time they had gotten it to, at that point, 13-10. All right, you're the road team, Buffalo. You're feeling pretty good. Buffalo comes down, and you got to ask McDermott a question at this point. I understand you have, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, so reigning MVP. So you're going to put your pressure on your quarterback to kind of get things done and see if he can get to a certain spot to get a field goal attempt. And considering that stadium, heck, you just got to get around the 50-yard line. You might have a shot. So I get the rationale behind it. But, we end up with he had so many turnovers. I'm trying to remember which one this one was. I think this one was the fumble. I think this is the strip fumble. No, this is the pick. This is the pick, I believe. That gave him the turnover. The pretty much setting them up for, this is the pick. That sets them up pretty much for a field goal at the end of the half, which ends up making it 16-10. Keep that in mind. You already had the 13-10, going down 13-10. He throws he makes the turnover, and you're now, you set up Denver, well, young QB, by the way, and make it easy for them to get the field goal at 16-10 at halftime, I believe. Now, we get the second half. Before I could get my drink and sit down properly and settle in for the second half, Josh Allen does it again. With lack of awareness in the pocket, strip, boom. Sitting on the 17-yard line, I believe, and they're right there at the doorstep again. And before you blink, in a matter of 2 minutes or so, is 23-10 on the road. Your veteran, all-pro, all-world quarterback, as some would say, you can't be doing that. You cannot be doing that. And it's like, at this point, you have to ask yourself, what the heck is going on? Now, I made a point. See, folks don't want to hear about when your boy B in this case has something to say about these things. Folks start getting all angry and getting all upset and getting in their feelings. A few weeks back, I believe it was the New England game where I had the Bills then, and I said, there's some funny things. Allen looked a little funny that day. Now, I'm not saying all of a sudden he just lost and he turned into a pumpkin. What I'm saying is some bad habits were slipping in is what I'm talking about. And boy, did they come to fruition in this game with the 2 picks and 2 fumbles. Lack of pocket awareness, moving, holding the ball for too long, and then just not reading the situation. As I said before, we'll get that last one in a second. Bo Nix played a pretty steady game. I think Peyton called a pretty steady, but at times fairly aggressive, which I did like. And I'm not a Peyton guy overall. I don't care for his personality, but I like the approach with the young quarterback. He wasn't playing scared. They were attacking when they had the chances. And I think you should. If you're the number 1 seed and these folks come in your building, you need to show them that you're the number 1 seed and why you are. So I give them props for that. There's a mental part of the game, in sports when we have 2 seeds and you have a lower seed. Even if some people don't think they should be the lower seed in the game, you got to kind of make sure that psychological advantage continues to say, hey, no. You're in our building, dude. This is how it gets run in our building. So, like, this is, the issue, obviously, like Josh Allen, the issue is never talent with Josh Allen. The issue, and to be fair with the Bills overall, it's always about situational football. And we saw there, man, not managing the clock and the time and the score before the half and after the half. We always hear that type of stuff, closing quarters in basketball. The same thing's true in football. You can't just let things like that slide, especially when you're on the road. You have to play the near perfect game with that crowd. You have to play the near perfect game, and that was rough. They had their opportunities. I'll say this much too. So now they find a way. Denver looks like they got it under control. I mean, to be fair, Buffalo wrestles it back. They get back to 23s. And then they take the lead. And it's like, okay. So at that point, I can't remember. They get back in this case. They take the lead. I think it was 27-23, I believe. 27-23, I think. Denver comes down, does a job, at 27-23, gets the touchdown. You're like, okay, it's all she wrote. Denver's put it down. Josh Allen, give him full credit. They march down the field. They get the game, they get the game tying field goal to put it in overtime. Cool. We're in overtime now. 30-30, no problem. All right, so off we go. The Buffalo defense, who, to be fair, I've been lying this defense a lot this season, but I thought they came up pretty big in this game. I mean, you sit there and you say, 33 points were scored on them, but that's if you're box score watching. If you actually watch the game, I thought Buffalo's defense came up big a lot of times where the game could have gotten out of hand due to Allen's turnovers. And I believe Cook dropped one too, I think, early in the first quarter, So your two best players give up 5 turnovers, I believe, between the two of them. If my math is right, that shows you how many turnovers they had. I got to double check the math. But when you look at that and you see how well they kept them in the game, kudos to the Buffalo defense, which is why I'm setting this up. Buffalo holds them, stops them. Fourth down, big play, fourth down, they stop them. Now the ball, I think, now the ball's in Buffalo's hands. I think it was, whatever the case, it might have been fourth down, might have been third down. Nonetheless, they stop them. Buffalo has the ball now with a chance. Next score wins. Cool. Buffalo marches down the field, looking like they're in field goal position. They get a first down or so and they're moving. They decide to go for the deep ball. And honestly, I don't even know what, the more I think about this, I don't even know why McDermott made that call, to be honest with you. Beat him or Allen. Whoever made the call, OC, whomever made the call, it wasn't necessary. It really wasn't. A field goal gets you the win. And in that stadium, you literally need to just get to like the 45-yard line to have a shot. I am shocked they went for the deep ball and they paid the price for it. Now, a lot of Bills Mafia would tell me, oh, you know what, that was an interception. From the letter of the law, Gene Saratora was on there. I'm not a big fan of having the referees as part of the broadcast, but boy, did he come in handy in this case. The fact that McMillan had his, not just one hand, he had both hands on the ball as both guys were going down the ball, essentially wrestling with the ball. And he came up with it as the melee was, was finished off and he rolled out of there with the pick. To me, after I looked at it a couple of times, it's a good call by the ref. So props to the referee team. The Zebras don't get a lot of love from most sports fans, but they got that right. New York confirmed it. They got it right. The question that Bills fans got to ask yourself is, what was the rush? It was the middle of the overtime. What was the rush? You have the better quarterback. He wasn't playing like it, but he is the better quarterback. Why do you need to go down the field and throw a bomb down the field? Like, I don't get it. I really don't. Anyways, that pick happens, 30 or 40 yards later, Bo Nix. Now, this is an odd one, actually. This is interesting, too. This is what I got asked, because I believe it happened on this play. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys. But in the overtime, Sean Payton runs a run play out for Bo Nix to the left. And supposedly, it was right before I think they had set up for the field goal. And Bo Nix, supposedly, I think on that play, boom, injures himself. I believe his ankle out for the rest of the playoffs. This was unbelievable because to me it looked like a nothing play. I still can't believe it. How much that is going to change what happens for the playoffs for the rest of this playoff run for the AFC and the NFC. Well, anyways, they get themselves in the field goal range. They get the job done, 33-30. The hometown guys are happy. Woo! Bronco Nation going crazy. Horses going crazy. Fine. You know, and I said before, you know, Stidham is going to be now the quarterback moving forward. We'll get into that at the end. Yikes. I think he hasn't thrown a pass for about 4 years or something. If Sean Payton is the guru, the quarterback whisperer that everyone claims he is, and you know, be fair, his resume has been pretty good. There's no two ways about it. It's gonna get put to the test. Let's put it that way for the rest of these playoffs. From the Buffalo side of things, wow. Well, the fallout has begun. McDermott is gone, as the recording. Happened earlier today. Not surprised. It can only go so far. As the old saying goes, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. And his I don't know what you want to call it. Sometimes he has a bad feel for the game. Let's put it that way. And that's in that point there in overtime that I don't think that was necessary. You're on the road. You don't need to be going for bombs. Have some patience. They were running the ball fairly decently. I don't understand it. That makes my head scratch up to now. But anyhow, he's gone. Josh Allen after the game was, you know, crying at the podium. I'll say this though, I was gonna be a little harsher when I did this podcast at first because I thought I didn't like his. You know, I'm no body language expert, but I guess I've gotten a crash course having Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback for the Steelers all years. But I'll say this: I didn't like him after the guys gave up the big play for Denver to get in the field goal range, and he's like putting his head down and stuff like that. Now I interpret that at first as like, yo, dude, you're kind of like getting vexed with the defense. What the heck, dude? You put him in that position. But, hey, don't say your boy B in this case beyond the locker room is not a fair arbiter. When I saw the press conference, I now understood what that meant. He put it on himself. And I think it's a fair assessment by him. And I think, sometimes we'll find out a lot about players and their character when they have these moments. Some players bounce back and, it ends up being a nice story as far as the road to glory. We've seen some of those to some extent with John Elway, where he's had some just been destroyed in Super Bowls and embarrassed. However, to be fair to Elway, I never thought any of those Super Bowls he was the potential reason for the loss. They were just outmanned, outgunned. This one though, this one's on Josh, man. This one's on Josh. You can't say that when they lose with 13 seconds and say, oh my gosh, he played the perfect game, which possibly he did, except one guy's a little bit better, and put it on the defense for the loss with 13 seconds. That's a fair critique. But it does swing the other way when the defense held up their end of the bargain, I think, for the most part, and you keep giving easy position for Denver as the home team. That's on you, man. That's on you in the offense. So I don't know where this takes him. We think about Josh Allen as a young quarterback, but he's been around the block now for about 6, 7, 8 years now, I think. Like he's in his prime, no two ways about it, but things happen fast, man. Things happen fast. For example, when Joe Burrow got to the Super Bowl after his second or third season, everyone said, oh man, Joe Burrow's going to be running the AFC, man. That Bengals team, man, with those receivers and stuff, they're going to be in the mix for the hunt all the time. Joe Burrow hasn't had a whiff since then. Things change fast, folks. That's sports. And when you have the chance to grab the brass ring, you better grab it. I'll leave it there. Game number 2, 49ers Seahawks. Joey G right here, baby. Going old school. Back to Kingdom days, I think, for that baby right there, boy. For that vintage jersey. Anyhow, Seahawks, get her done, as they say. Boy, this thing was done. Sometimes when you make certain comments say things were done right off the jump, it's pure hyperbole. Not in this case. This was done at the jump. Moment the kickoff happened, it was a wrap. Sorry for my man, in this case, Reese, man. We were going back and forth a little bit that night. It was rough for him. As a Niners fan, it was rough. To be fair to him, he was already fearing the doom already when we talked. So, to be fair to him, he was like Nostradamus. He could feel this one coming, boy. My goodness. I mean, I see some teams get punked. I just mentioned Denver in the Super Bowls. Some of those Bills lost in the Super Bowls in the back in the Marv Levy days. There's some punkage going on there. The punkage here was startling. Because to be fair to the 49ers, they're not known to be a soft team to get roughed about and get punked like that. But they got it was just back to the woodshed on every aspect. Special teams started off. Offense. Defense was out there just flying around. Like it was done. It was done by the first quarter. And that 12th man, boy, it wasn't making it easy for Brock Purdy. And once again, folks, like I'm not going to stick around too much with this. Once again, I'll say it again. I said it a few weeks back, and I will ask you 49er fans. I know everyone is genuflect at the altar of Shanahan. I get it. Oh, man. He's this and that. He's the best. And he can construct so many plays. And oh my gosh, he's a wizard and so on, a genius. Riddle me this, folks. For the genius, why is it that his team seem to be always more banged up and injured more than any other team? It just seems like he's always got a bunch of injured players. And the only reason why I ask that question is that I question sometimes some of his play calling. From the standpoint is, does that put some of his players at risk in odd, awkward situations? I don't know. You tell me. But it always seems like his teams are always hurt. And I get it. There's injuries across the league. Everyone's hurt to some extent. But not the type of rash of injuries that this guy has. Almost his whole offensive starting lineup is out. Every skilled position player is almost out by the time they get to the playoffs. They lose Kittle last week. Now, some of them might be flukes. I get it. But I got to ask the question. It's always something. McCaffrey this week. I don't know. It's like at some point, San Francisco might want to start thinking kind of like Buffalo. Like, we might want to go down a different path. Now, John Lynch, that's his man. So I don't think he's going to do anything. But you got that big stadium, Santa Clara, to fill up. And folks going to start asking questions. We keep knocking on the doorstep. We keep knocking. Like Bum Phillips back in the day with the Houston Oilers, knocking on that door, and you hope one day you kick it down. I don't think you're kicking it down, fellas. I don't think you're kicking it down. So I'll leave it there for San Francisco. Seattle, we'll get to them in a second when we talk about the picks. But Darnold was solid, more than solid. He played a really great game. Everyone played fantastic, man. So, props to Seattle. The coaching staff had it ready to go. And they're going to be tough to beat at home. That's all I have to say about that. We now move to the Sunday games. Turnover kills dreams. Kill dreams. My goodness. Well, once again, we have another discussion about quarterback that didn't come to play, while the rest of his team did come to play, especially the defense. Patriots win this one. And really, the disciplined defense were the stories of this game. The New England defense, there's been a lot of talk about New England about, are they really that good because their schedule is a little soft? And that's a fair critique. But the defense is no joke. I think we just got to realize the defense is no joke. We saw what it did to Buffalo for the most part. And, I would say this, as well as New England played, they played okay. They'll have to play better if they want to beat Denver, even with a backup. They are playing on the road, and they have a young quarterback too. I just think that that game was handed to them on platter. I'm sorry to say it. I mean, props to them with the turnovers. Their rush was fearsome. No two ways about it. Their rush was fearsome. However, and CJ Stroud, man, what the heck's going on, man? For a guy that's been a big time kind of big game player from college and even his early stance with the playoff run with Houston, even when they lost to KC a couple of, I think it was last year, I thought he played well. It was just one of those things where they had a tough break here and there, but But that defense, man, is like, it's something else, man, that front four. It's one of the most ferocious front fours I've seen in a while, man. I think I got to go back to Giants front four to see our defensive front four is that ruthless and that aggressive. Like, they come at it on every down. It's not like one of those things where they're kind of gearing up for third down. No, man. Every down. Hunter, Anderson Jr. and them boys, they're coming off. They're just peeling off the wings. Sometimes they'll bull rush you. They are in your face all the time. And they did their part. Strips, you name it. They set them up to keep them in the game. And they were in a game in the third quarter. And C.J. Stroud kept on giving them back the ball with short fields all the time. And I don't know what happened. I don't know. Like, all year they've been off. He and the offensive coordinator. I don't know what's going on there. They're going to need an offseason to figure that out because, like, he's regressed in a lot of ways, and that might be due to the system that's in place. And maybe it's one of those things where he just needs another year of seasoning with this OC to see what's going on. But you can't be giving away the ball like that. You can't. Now, on the other side, May played pretty solid. I thought overall he played well. Few times he got a little happy feet. That rush would make you do so, but I thought he was really solid and a cool customer. And he protected the ball in those conditions, the weather conditions. To be fair, not just Stroud, the running backs were putting the ball down as well too. So, like, hey, I get it. So the weather conditions were rough. It was snow, it was wet, but you got to protect the ball, man. And I think that's really what sums up that game. I don't think there's much else to say. It wasn't the most entertaining game overall. I think it was probably, I would say, arguably, I know Seattle was a rout, but Seattle was at least entertaining. There was stuff going on all the time. This game was a bit of a snoozer a little bit. It wasn't the prettiest of games. Let's put it this way. They're not putting that one in Canton. All right, for the final game. Oh boy, as I said before, experience matters, I guess, to some extent, but I think it's a bit, like, I think I'll reframe that a little bit. I would say experience understands opportunity. And what I mean by that is that LA picked their spots and they didn't have many opportunities, but when they found the opportunities, they drove that through like a Mack truck, to get through. This game's a really, first thing, I'll just say this, let's get this out of the way. Because we'll talk about Caleb in this case with the picks, and I got my thoughts on that. Because once again, that's a theme throughout the whole playoffs. You can't give away the ball, especially your QBs. You can't do it. However, I said it before, I'll say it again, I said it on IG, I said it here. He's must-see TV. If you're just a pure fan of football, I got no dog in the hunt watching Rams-Bears. No dog. Nothing's barking. But if you just enjoy watching sports or enjoy watching football, man, Caleb Williams, man, like, he is a gift. I'll just say that, man. Be it either giving it away or making plays like the last play at regulation. That was an incredible pass. Kmet found a way. He knew his quarterback will find a way to get that ball in the air and just kind of release nicely. And, I know the Rams were begging for a pass interference. Like, give me a break with that nonsense. Fantastic pass. I mean, versus them boys are just breathing down his neck. Just all up in his throat. He could smell their breath on him. And he found a way to find it in the end zone. Perfect pass. Unreal in those conditions, those weather conditions. Hey, he's must-see TV, man. And I love the scene. Let me get warm and fuzzy for a second. I love the scene because God bless you, Bears fans. You don't have much to root for many years. And the round of applause, the standing ovation they gave that young man when he walked in the tunnel. That's what sports is about. Those are the nice things about sports. We talk about a lot of dark things and injuries and who doesn't like which coach and this coach don't like this player. That was nice. That was lovely. I mean, you guys a few moments that throughout the playoffs. You had the reporter with with Cohen, the Jacksonville coach. And I think this is another one where it was real nice to see the appreciation that Bears fans had for what Williams had done for them and the enjoyment he brought to them this season. I just say so as well too as a fan of the game. Man, I enjoyed it. Thank you, sir. I'll apply. All right, let's get down to business though. Let's get down to business. All right. I'll say this. 3 picks. The first pick is definitely on him. No two ways about it. The first pick's on him. The other 2 picks, I'm not too sure, and I think Chris Collinsworth made a great point. The rookie in this case here, made a bad read. It's one of those classic zig when you should zag, and that was when the pick happened. Unfortunately, it happened. Obviously, it's on the quarterback with his statistics because you won't see that in the box score. But I don't think that really was on him. And the one that pretty much sealed the deal, I'll say this much. I know some people, I saw Chase Daniel do his breakdown. I think I posted on IG or maybe on X what he had to say about it on the film breakdown he had on that play with DJ Moore. Funny enough, before that happened, he had a couple plays before that, and I'm sitting there and thinking to myself, like, that man's not all there, man. Now, I don't know if you'll ever find out if he had concussion, but something wasn't right with him after he got his bell rung sometime, and I think in the early fourth, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was early fourth quarter. Something wasn't right, and he wasn't right after that. And that was like, so I think some people gotta have some more grace where it's like, oh, he gave up on the play. It's like, I don't think my personal opinion, I don't think he's all there. I think I'm not saying the doctors rushed him back in, but I think, who knows? I think maybe later on now we might find out that, after a few hours that, hey, he's a little fuzzier than they thought. And I think that was possibly part of the problem because the route he ran made no sense. If you watch what Chase Daniel put on there and a few other guys have posted stuff, like he should cut that in way more. The spot is wide open in that area where Williams throws the ball. And so he's expecting to be there, but Curl beats him to the spot. He wasn't even anywhere near it. Like he wasn't even looking over his shoulder for the ball. Like he didn't even think it was coming to him, so I'm not sure what was going on there. He was acting like he was a decoy. So a few times with the wide receivers, some miscommunication, and it cost them. You got details are everything in the playoffs in every sport, especially in this one, and it cost them. The Rams once again opportunistic and found their spots and took care of things, and you got a veteran quarterback like Stafford, and that's all it took. So the Rams did their thing. I thought the defense was solid, and they've had some issues this year with that defense, but it held up well, even with the onslaught that is Caleb Williams in the fourth. They held up just enough. I will say this, going back to the Bears for a second. Ben, man, I'll put it this way. If you're willing to run crazy and aggressive plays for Jared Goff, then you could do a little bit more of that with Caleb Williams. I thought the play calling for 3 quarters was way too conservative. Way too conservative. Too many of those fourth downs were so rudimentary and so predictable. I thought I was watching 1982 Bears. I thought it was Mike Ditka running that play. Like, are you serious? Like where's the innovation? You're supposed to be the hot shot innovator, hot shot guru on offense. Like, that's what you're giving me? We'll run right off right tackle on almost every fourth down? That's what we're doing? And only the one time when we surprise you, we do it on the left? Like there's got to be more to the playbook than that, man. So that's something for him. Sort out for next season, man. He and his quarterback got to get on the page. Caleb's got some work to do on some of the easier throws. No two ways about it. I think, that's his thing. But I think that will get sorted out. He showed improvement already, so I think that's, his pocket awareness. Last year, that last play would have been, at regulation would have been a sack for Caleb. He's figuring out, he's getting a feel for the speed and knows when he can make his move and stuff like that. So his pocket awareness, in my mind, has really been really impressive. And his, Collinsworth talk about, he's gonna run. He picked his spots well. That turf, that weather, it wasn't the ideal conditions, but he picked his spots when he should run. I thought, he could have run a bit more, fair enough, but I didn't think it was as necessary. But when he needed to, he put the Jets on to get that first down to try and keep the drive alive, to hopefully, win it in overtime. Unfortunately, we know what happened afterwards. But overall, if you're a Bears fan, love the season. Rams, we'll get into what you're going to have to do next when you get to C-Town. All right, Locker Room takes, and it's my picks for this week as we get to the conference finals. All right, let's start with the NFC since that's where I left off. Rams in Seattle, 12th man. Last time these two played, it was a doozy, as they like to say. We got to get him off the spot, man. Got to get Stafford off the spot. Seattle's got to make a move, man. You make a move, you got your shot for some turnovers. and get after him if possible. I don't know how much we'll blitz. That's the key thing. They paid the price quite a bit in that crazy game a few weeks ago on Thursday night. So that's going to be interesting to see what the defensive approach is. On the offense, I think you got to do more ball control. I don't feel good, even though we're at home. I don't want to take another chance with another shootout with LA. Let me manage the game and get in the 20s. I don't want a game in the 30s. You get in the 30s, I think we're in some trouble. But I still like my chances. I like beating the home team. I think overall, Seattle has the overall better units. When you talk about the 3 units, special teams, offense, and defense, give me the Seahawks in a close one. But I think Seattle heads to the Super Bowl. Maybe a tad bit biased, but overall, this is my sober analysis, folks. Sober analysis. All right, on the AFC side, and we'll wrap this up. AFC side, you know what? It's New England's to take. Vrabel's a great playoff coach, and this is his time. Just like I mentioned about Josh last week, this is his moment. You got a backup quarterback here in a big spot. That Denver defense is going to do their part to keep it tight. It's going to be a tight one still, but I like New England to take the upset. I hate to say this. The P-Men back in the Super Bowl. Oh, gosh, again. But I think it's the case. I think you're going to get Seattle, New England in the Super Bowl. We're going to get the rematch. And this time, Seattle will get this due for the pass on the goal line. But we'll get to that in a second when Super Bowl Sunday comes. We got time, folks. We got time. Anyways, folks, it's been, I hope you stuck with me. Thank you again for the support. Appreciate it. Once again, you can find me on X, Facebook, Blue Sky, of course, now on Instagram, man. So check me out there. You might see me wearing a Seahawks jersey, once in a while, giving me some at the moment feel of how I feel about what the Seahawks are up to. Also, you can also find me right here on YouTube, of course. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Hey guys, love the comments. Keep them coming. Love the discussion. And you guys tell me, man, what where do you see the Bills going, for example, since we wrap up the epitaph of the Bills? Do they reset? Are they just right there? Is it just a coaching change? Give me your thoughts on the Bills and what you think is going to happen next with them. Anyways, guys, man, keep it locked as always. We'll talk soon, man. Peace.